Before we begin, let me make something abundantly clear. If Elon Musk and his family tree have no haters, I am dead. I have no shame in my disdain. Please allow me to cook. Thank you. We've talked a little bit about the Musk family in the past, but now I am bringing you guys a very comprehensive deep dive, starting from Elon Musk's parents. We'll talk a little bit about Elon Musk's grandparents as well. Let's begin with Maye Musk, Elon Musk's mother, because I personally believe that Maye Musk lives in a completely different reality than the rest of us to a frightening degree. Let's do a super quick background, a Cliff Notes background on Maye Musk so that we can better understand why her spawn acts the way that he does. Elon Musk's mother, Maye Musk, was born in Canada in 1948, and she is one of a twin. Her sister is named Kay. When her and her twin sister were babies, her family decided to relocate from Canada to South Africa. No shade at all children are beautiful, but Kay and Maye seem to have been directly pulled from The Shining. Okay, so follow me here, right? We know Maye Musk was born in 1948. We know that her family relocated to South Africa in 1948. What else happened in 1948? Oh, the South African apartheid began in 1948. Maye Musk's father, Elon Musk's grandfather, is a well-documented supporter of apartheid. Let me give you some cliff notes on the South African apartheid real quickly, because it is imperative that you have somewhat of an understanding of the injustices that occurred to the indigenous people of South Africa. Because to fully understand where the Musk wealth came from, we have to go back in history and understand their part in the South African apartheid and how they created generational wealth out of legalized oppression. So the apartheid in South Africa officially began in 1948 and officially ended in 1994. In present day, 2024, the indigenous people of South Africa have not fully recovered from over 50 years of legalized oppression. Maye Musk's parents, Elon Musk's mother's parents, his grandparents, were some of the OG settlers in the South African apartheid, which caused indigenous and native South Africans to be displaced en masse from their homes to allow for settlers to come in and take their jobs, their homes, their land, everything. They were displaced en masse, and the displacement of these native South Africans was the least violent thing that they had to endure at the hands of the National Party, which took rule after the Second World Conflict. Here is the National Party that quite literally took over South Africa. Take a good look at them. Do any of those people look anywhere near indigenous to South Africa to you? No. Thanks to these brain-dead skin sacks, formerly known as the National Party, interracial marriage became criminalized in South Africa. Laws were passed that barred native indigenous South Africans from traveling, working, and living in the areas where settlers were residing, which was their native land. Jobs were taken from indigenous South Africans and given to unqualified settlers. Black South Africans legally lost the right to vote, and the Black South African children no longer had rights nor access to education. The government quite literally went in, took their land, took their homes, took their jobs, took their right to education, took their right to vote, and then made it extremely hard for them to be able to pick themselves up and start a new life that they have been forced to start because of the government. The South African apartheid brought out many excellent voices and advocates of change, including Nelson Mandela, who started to make a lot of noise in the 1950s doing anti-apartheid activist work. Because of this, the National Party would arrest Nelson Mandela and sentence him to life in prison. Nelson Mandela would then go on to spend 27 years behind bars during the apartheid, but he was released towards the fall of the apartheid, and a few years after he was released, he was awarded with a Nobel Peace Prize, and then a few years after that, he was named the president of South Africa. By the 1960s, Black South Africans had been absolutely pushed to their limit, and they began peacefully protesting very often. As the injustices grew, the protests against the national parties grew as well. It was far too common of an occurrence for peaceful protests by Black South Africans to lead to a mass unaliving of peaceful protesters. For example, the mass unaliving in Sharpeville, there was a peaceful protest that ultimately resulted in police opening fire on this crowd of protesters, unaliving 69 people. And primarily teens and children would come out to these protests to fight for the right to education. Now, that was very much a condensed version of the horrors that the Indigenous people of South Africa had to experience during the apartheid. Hopefully, that gives you somewhat of an idea of the turmoil and the horror these people had to live through at the hands of oppressors like May Musk's family and more people in May Musk's life that we'll get into in a moment. May Musk's father and mother were both very well off even before moving to apartheid South Africa. Her father was especially influential, being a chiropractor, an amateur archaeologist, and the former director of Technocracy Incorporated. I'll go to part 2 because I want to talk more about Technocracy and how I believe May Musk's father, Elon Musk's grandfather's political ideology has influenced Elon Musk very much so in how he is moving politically in the United States in present day.